Hello, and welcome to PGS Reviews. I'm your host, RM. PGS Reviews was created for PGS members to present their work and review entertainment that stirs the imagination. Today, I'm delighted to be doing a non-spoiler review of Tango Shalom with Scotty R37 from the Phantasmagorium Show. Welcome, Scotty.
Hey.
We've been hearing so much about Tango Shalom over this last year, haven't we?
Absolutely, yeah. It's like somebody that we know has edited it.
Well, it's been a labor of love for Robert Meyer, Burnett, and the entire production team to create. And now the film will be premiering in the theaters on Friday, September 3rd in LA and New York. But you and I have already seen Tango Shalom, and we certainly have so much to say about this extraordinary film.
Absolutely, yeah. It is. It's delightfully heartwarming, and I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it. I really like comedies. I enjoy exploring spirituality and family and things like that through film. And so when I saw it, it was more engaging than I thought it was going to be. I kind of watched it out of a sense of not obligation, but I was like, I wonder what this is like. And I really came away touched by it more than I thought I was going to be.
Mm-hmm. And, I felt the same way. The film has made rounds at many film festivals and already won awards and praise for its positive message. So I want to start off kind of talking about Robert Meyer Burnett and essentially just the making of Tango Shalom, because the fact is that Robert has been sharing his journey of making this film with our community. So, Scotty, when did you first hear about Tango Shalom, from Robert, and what was your impression of what the project would be like hearing about it over the last year or so?
Well, and I heard about it through Robservations and through the updates that Rob was giving us, just in terms of the editing and the special effects and the journey with the Bologna family and how Joe Bologna was in it and how it had been a labor of love for him. And I just joined the PGS last year, and so following through that journey and finding out that it was released and available, it was available to me streaming through a Toronto film festival, and I checked it out through that, and yeah, it was surprising, but it has been a production journey following Rob as well.
Yeah, it really has. I mean, he's been really nice to kind of share a lot of the hard work, and it seems like it really has been a labor of love for him. And it was an involved process, and he did mention something about it taking several years, I guess 5 years or so, to finish the film. And like you, I saw the film initially through the Wilmington Jewish Film Festival, which was done remotely. And eventually I was, of course I was equally impressed by what I saw, but I also was able to see the film again with the cast and crew at the Brooklyn Film Festival.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So I got a chance to meet, the director as well as the screenwriters and quite a bit of the cast and crew. And that was a very impressive and interesting thing. But I also noticed that, as I was watching the film, that Robert is wearing many hats, as a editor, but also as a producer and visual effects supervisor. Forgive me if I left something out, but he's done, several different jobs on this film.
Well, and I don't think it's much of a surprise, but he is the voice of Moses?
I believe he did say that, yes.
It's one of the few spoilers that I'm going to give away, and so, yeah.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that. And it just goes to show you, and I think that part of what I love about the fact that we kind of were exposed to the creation process of the film is that we're sort of understanding all of these details that go into making a film, an independent film especially, and the effort that's required for it. And he certainly has put in so much work and so much time into this, and it really was something that required a lot of attention. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And I remember Robert mentioning something about how for the visual effects, there's a certain scene where he had to go and find people who could recreate that visual effect. And that alone, he had to describe to them what that visual effect would entail and what he's looking for, and then determine whether or not they could recreate it for the film. So wearing all those hats, it was really impressive to see that. So, but another thing, Scotty, in this film, we see so many well-known stars and performers.
Yeah, and actually, it was sort of going through the IMDb, finding out that Karina Smirnoff had been on Dancing with the Stars. I hate to break it to you, I'm not much of a Dancing with the Stars fan, but it definitely speaks to her talents in the film and being able to do all of the dance moves, and yeah. And then also Joe Bologna's in there. I really was delighted to see him. He's always been, hey, it's that guy. And it's always been a pleasure to see him when he shows up. But when he shows up as Father Anthony, super jazzed. And it was, yeah, I don't want to go too far ahead, but it was just nice to see Moishe go and seek out members of other faiths to have conversations. Lainey Kazan is in there, and she was in My Big Fat Greek Wedding as well. And she's always been a comedian that I've enjoyed, or an actress that I've enjoyed. It is a cast indeed.
Yes, certainly. And I do remember Lainey in My Big Fat Greek Wedding, and that was a fantastic film. Renee Taylor is also and she's in The Nanny from television. In regards to Karina Smirnoff, I did watch Dancing with the Stars. So
Okay.
I was happy to see her in there. And, honestly, for an independent film, Scotty, so many recognizable performers, this is a real treat to see an ensemble cast like this. And so I know you mentioned that you enjoyed the film very much. I watched the film with my mother, and she also enjoyed the film. And, we watched it more than once because it was on demand. So we watched it twice. But one really interesting thing I thought about the film was its location, which is in New York primarily. And although some scenes were filmed elsewhere, a lot of the sites were recognizable to me. I live in New York, and my mother kind of grew up near that area in Brooklyn. So, she absolutely loves seeing a lot of the sites that she was familiar with, even though she hasn't lived there for quite some time. But I just love that we got a chance to see some of the Orthodox Jewish community in this film.
Well, yeah, and also you mentioned New York. It's one of those movies, and I do enjoy New York movies. I've never been there. I've never lived there, but things like Ghostbusters or When Harry Met Sally, where the city really becomes a character in the film, and you get a sense of the geography as well when they leave their community, like the Orthodox Jewish community, and crossing over into different places when Moshe's trying to get a job, and it does feel like a New York movie as well.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that. And I think that that's what they were going for, was to get that sense of, this is where they live. And, we understand what the Orthodox Jewish community is like, but we also got a sense to see what the surrounding areas were like, because there was quite a lot of interaction between the main character and surrounding groups. And, I think that was also really interesting, because it's actually true. Walking through the streets of New York, you can't always isolate yourself. There's so many cultures around, and oftentimes you find yourself intermingling with different people, and from different cultures and religions. So I thought that was really wonderful. One other thing that I thought was very interesting, and I wanted to get your opinion on it, was the music throughout this film was really just inspiring and fun to listen to.
Well, and I'm more of a classic, not classic, but sort of mid 20th century big band and swing and samba and all of, well, and dance music, classical ballroom dancing music. I do enjoy, when you hold and yeah. And so the orchestrations were really great. There was a lot of kinetic energy with it, and it really keeps it up. And it is my kind of music. So maybe that's part of the reason why I fell in love with it so hard.
Yeah, and my mother certainly was humming and singing throughout it, and I was tapping my feet. And obviously a lot of the music is very significant to the Jewish culture.
Mm-hmm.
And so inevitably this film as far as I'm concerned, has become culturally significant because it actually is showing the celebration of Jewish faith as well as other faiths. So I just really love that. And I think that them showing that kind of enhanced the film even more. But you were mentioning something about how the main character found himself at a point in the film where he had to seek guidance, and there was sort of an interfaith message. Can you elaborate on that a little bit for us?
Well, and through the film, I think it's the premise, and again, trying to avoid spoilers, but Moishe has a dream and a vision that he should enter a tango competition in almost a traditional, all right, enter the contest, win the big cash prize sort of way. But the obstacle thrown up in his way is that as an Orthodox Jew, no eye contact, no touching of Gentile. The only person you can touch is going to be the woman that you married. And so he has to go and find out through other faiths and see if there is wiggle room to try and solve this problem. Is there a way that I can enter this contest and still be faithful, still be true to my beliefs? And so he does. He goes and he seeks out a Catholic priest, I don't know the titles of every faith, but a Hindu spiritual leader, a Muslim spiritual leader, and says, how do I do this? And it's just interesting to have those conversations, not necessarily in terms of what it means to the Jewish faith, but also to explore what sort of relationship you have with God to be able to achieve your goals on a more, corporeal plane while still being true to what you believe and being respectful to your faith. And so those interactions are very interesting, and how each particular faith leader does address the situation. And I really enjoy the charisma of the Hindu when he's like, oh, big problems, those make for big fun. And it was really inspiring to see that interfaith cooperation, and somewhat fantastical maybe, because there have been tensions between different faiths over the entire history of human existence.
Mhm.
But it was really cooperative and heartwarming.
Yeah, you make an excellent point with that. And one thing that I think of when I saw scenes like that, I had the pleasure of hearing one of the screenplay writers say that he was hoping that the film would bring about peace throughout the world. And I thought to myself, well, how many times have I ever heard a director, or anybody actually, say that type of a comment about work or artwork or anything that they've created? And it's very rare. And I thought that by showing examples of this interaction in the film, and in such a positive way, demonstrates that there is potential to reach that peace. There is potential to have that level of cooperation. So I thought it was a very bold way to set an example for. And hopefully it will kind of bring around peace as the screenwriter intended. So I think that, this is one of the achievements of the film that definitely makes it stand out, but also, will spread a message that everyone can benefit from. And
Yeah,
you also, I'm sorry, go ahead.
so with that cooperation, there is still a little bit of realism. There does occur at the end. There is a gathering of sorts, and some of the members of different faith communities could not attend so that they could stay true to their spiritual beliefs as well. However, there was still acknowledgement, and there was a form of coming together of all of the faith communities while still staying true to their own as well. And one of the things that I found sort of piqued my interest was that the biggest obstacle that was happening to Moishe during the film was the obstacles being thrown up by his own community, by the Jewish community, being like, well, if he's doing this, then this is wrong. There's no way he can succeed. There's no way he can achieve his goal of dancing the tango in this contest without betraying his beliefs. And it's one of the other rabbis who says, why are you guys hoping that he fails? We should really be supporting him and praying that he doesn't. We want him to succeed. And that was one of the messages of the movie that I thought struck with me as well, as opposed to sitting there and hating on something or disliking something. You're supposed to be looking for the positive. You're supposed to be wanting the success of your community and individuals within it.
Yeah, that's probably one of the most important messages in the film. The idea of encouragement and remaining positive and hoping for the best for everyone. I mean, you make such a good point with that. And it really, I thought, spoke to the idea of keeping peace and just trying to keep a positive message all around. And the other thing too is that since the community had such an influence over, or a perceived sense of influence over the success of this venture, we can see that this film is essentially presenting the realism of that no one is an island. His entire community kind of had a sense of involvement in this, and I think that was also very important in the sense of having support of others when you do have difficulties or challenges in your life. Being able to know that you can, or that someone is rooting for you or praying for your success is at times and often a comfort to many. So I also thought that was very interesting. You bring that up, and I agree with you 100%, Scotty.
Well, thank you.
Well, I also felt that the idea of using music and dance in this film was to promote unity, because although the, people, I don't want to give too much away, but let's just say, I have a feeling that the idea of using tango was a way to stir interest, but not just because you're interested in the tango, because the dancing and the interest in dance, can bring people together. And you mentioned that you're very fond of, am I correct in saying ballroom dancing, Scotty?
Yes.
Okay. And, for anyone who's watching this, I know sometimes when you see a title of a film and it'll say tango or something like that, it may not necessarily mean that the film has that in it, but I can assure you in this film, it does involve dancing and tango. So for people who enjoy ballroom dancing, this is definitely an interesting foray down the exploration of what you can achieve with dance in a film. And so I kind of really like that element of it. But also, one thing that I noticed about the film was that it demonstrated that even when they were faced with different obstacles, which I'm not going to name, somehow coming together to achieve this one goal managed to bring out the best in everyone.
Yeah, and it was the process of the tango is a very exact dance. It is not something that you can fake. And part of the reason why I enjoy ballroom dancing is because it is specific. And I've broken the glasses of a dance partner once because I thought I could just bluff my way through it. So the difficulty of tango itself was an obstacle, learning the tango, and then also no touching. So that was interesting. Are we going to talk about the balloon? How the balloon was a character incorporated into, it was almost like there was a third dance partner.
Well,
It
I
was
don't want to say too much about that
the
part.
balloon. Okay.
But I want there like to be surprised by, some of the things that were incorporated in it. But you're right. There's some other elements that are unexpected in this film, that are innovative, that are very interesting, and are fun to watch on film. That I'm sure, as proposed, may not feel like it could be done, but once you see it on the screen and you see the execution of the dance and the manner that it's done, you will be pleasantly surprised. Anybody who's listening to this will be pleasantly surprised at the outcome of this, because it's just so much fun to watch.
Well, and also it is a testament to the editing in terms of you've made a very specific rule within this particular tango, and the two partners cannot touch. And so I'm sure at moments of filming, rehearsal, what have you, they were trying not to touch, but inevitably they were going to. It's just one of those things. You had to be very specific about cutting away just in time so that you were shown that these two characters did not touch. And it was exacting and really well done, because I was looking for it. I do keep an eye open and be like, uh-oh, are they going to do it? Are they going to do it? And there were a couple times when they just veer close enough and then it cuts away, and it was great. It was tension building.
It certainly was, and exactly what you're talking about. And I feel that this might be it. And correct me if I'm wrong, but sort of like the importance of and the perception of touch. And so there was this great deal of anticipation.
Mhm.
And dance itself, when you're dancing with a partner, but not always, obviously you could do this dancing solo, but dancing with a partner, there is a certain sense of expectation and anticipation of when you're dancing with the person, and the proximity and the closeness of dancing. And so there's that expectation, I guess, of the unknown. But I think it also holds true in this film, because we really were entertained by the dilemma of this. And so the dilemma itself presents the comedy relief oftentimes in the movie that, just puts a smile on your face and is completely relatable. One thing that I do like also in the story is that the main character often, turns to prayer for guidance. And as we already mentioned, he is seeking approval from many sources. And, that also is difficult sometimes to figure out what you're going to do. And you know what? He doesn't get it sort of on day one. It's not a process that he's able to solve immediately. And I think that that's also very important to see.
Well, and having those, well, from what I understand, when it comes to writing, if you want to build a good character, keep throwing problems at them and see how they overcome them. And yeah, he does. He seeks out prayer, and as mentioned, he goes and talks to other members of different faith communities. He speaks to his own community. Oh, and before I forget,
Mm-hmm.
he has a rockin' relationship with his wife too. They are frisky, and so it is with the problems that are being sort of thrown up in between Moishe and his goals, because it is a financially strapped situation. And his brother suffers from the same thing as well. And so while he's dealing with his own adversities, he's also trying to figure out how to help his brother, how to stay true to not only his God, but also his wife, and not embarrass his children as well, because there is a lot of being shunned from the community in this as well. And he does go about it in an interesting way. There comes a point in the middle of the movie where it almost becomes sort of an Ocean's 11 heist movie, or a surreptitious, all right, how are we going to get the rehearsals in? Can I borrow your shop? And it's really, yeah, and the creative ways that he solves those problems make it engaging and entertaining.
Yeah, I did love that. In particular, some of the solutions that they were able to come up with these problems. And I also think that it reiterated that in the end, he really did need the help and support of the community. And, oftentimes I think that we may see circumstances where some people may feel that they have to do things on their own and alone. And, especially the past year that we had, where many of us were kind of, shut in and couldn't reach out to others the way that we might have normally hoped to. But I think that this film shows that, we do, oftentimes find ourselves in difficult situations. And sometimes, other people have the solutions that you're looking for, or can help you find a solution to a problem that you have. So, I think almost on every level, from his spouse to his community, and even, beyond that point, where he finds these obstacles, he is getting help along the way. And sometimes it's just in the most unexpected ways. So, that adds to the interesting part. And I also did like that we got to see more of the Jewish community, the Orthodox Jewish community in this film, and some, regular or let's say non-Orthodox Jews as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I really liked that we saw a variety of religions and ethnicities. And it really, I think in this day and age where we see, tensions, as you mentioned before, we're really seeing a wonderful film that's showing us an alternative to solving solutions. And, I hope anyone who sees the film can kind of take away that message, when they see it.
Well, and even within Moishe's community and in the Jewish community, it wasn't portrayed as, okay, this is the broad brush Jewish community. There were different levels of faith. Again, Moishe's brother is not as pious as Moishe himself, but it still, there were varying grades of faithfulness within that community, and that occurs so much within all communities. It's not just one monolith. It's not like, okay, if there's this Jewish individual, that represents all Jewish individuals, which just isn't the case for anyone, whether you be Catholic or Christian or Muslim or Hindu. Any faith has varying levels of piousness, if that's a word. I've just coined it.
Yes, absolutely. And you're completely right. And you spoke about how, and we did mention this already, how the city was used as a backdrop and becomes a character in the story. And there are some beautiful scenic vistas of New York in this film as well, where, we get to see the community, but we also get to see, sort of like famous bridges and, some areas that, have different groups of people in them, and, people traversing the streets and the beauty of the streets of New York, like you said, that you would have seen in something like When Harry Met Sally, or in that regard. And we do see even more of that in the film. I also enjoyed, of course, the idea that, when there was a situation where I'm trying to remember it, the community had said that they were going to monitor what was going on.
Yeah.
And despite the fact that that was happening, I think one important thing that we saw in the film was that the realization that in this particular case, he was going to be watched. Mm-hmm. And I think that if people find themselves in a situation like this, obviously he cares what his community thinks.
Of course.
And so I think the sensitivity of the dance instructor in that particular situation, I don't want to give too much of it away without saying what it is. I think her sensitivity in that situation, and in many situations where, for example, where they had to observe a certain sense of modesty, or even where there had to be a certain sense of, not making eye contact or even communication. Mm-hmm. Her level of sensitivity and the fact that she was able to almost become part of their family at some point, I thought was something that was very important, because she might have been the last person they were expecting to bring them to that point where they could achieve a certain level of excellence, I suppose, in how everything worked out. So I think that her role especially was significant, because she managed to improve things in different ways, or perhaps bring out the best in Moishe, and perhaps even in the community at some point. So I just thought that was also very important. And the reason why I'm bringing it up is because as an artist, as a performer, you always want to have an impact on everybody who's watching your work. And I think that in her particular case, she had one of the greatest impacts, and it was an incredibly positive one.
Well, and the character Viviana has obstacles of her own. She has her own family, has a daughter who has special needs, and that is a difficulty for her, or has been, not through any hardship, but just the trials and tribulations of raising any child. And there is an inclusion of all of the families at the end, whether they be biological, community, or faith related, and they all do get together in the end, and it is a positive outcome. It's interesting that you mentioned the sweeping shots of New York and getting the geography of it, and the reason why I bring up why it is one of those New York movies where the city is a character. I remember in Rumble in the Bronx, that is filmed in Vancouver, and you can totally tell. And so you do really get a sense of the city. And again, it is really a character. And with them being watched within the geography of New York, and these families all sort of paying attention to each other, it kind of struck me that when they are being watched and they have to do it surreptitiously, and eventually when we do get to the climax of the film and there is the tango, it does become a situation where they have to dance like nobody's watching. When the
Yes.
entire world is watching, they had to dance like nobody's watching, and I thought that was really cool too.
I love that analogy. And that's exactly it, isn't it? I just love that description that you did, Scotty.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Is there anything else you want to say about the film before we go?
Well, and you touched on briefly in terms of the year that we've had, and how we have felt sort of disconnected or not necessarily with the people that we want to be with. And this movie came at a time, as I mentioned or may not have mentioned, I saw it in March of this year, March or February of this year, and it was a movie that really filled me with a sense of community. I have in my family, I have an interfaith family. My Christian sister is married to a Muslim, and it's trying, and it's getting the understanding between my parents and his parents, to get them together and sort of cooperate and acknowledge the love of a community or two communities coming together without it becoming something that is sort of taboo or frowned upon. And this movie sort of spoke to wanting to be with people and the obstacles that you overcome to try and get these people together. And so it really did fill my heart. It really made me feel good at a time that I needed it. And so, yeah. Oh, and also no spoilers, but if I had to sum up this movie in one word, I would say it's a banana.
I think that's very clever, and I'm going to go with that too, Scotty. It certainly is. And where can people find you?
Oh, I am on the Phantasmagorium Show Monday to Friday. We have a YouTube channel. It's the Phantasmagorium Show. And check us out. We have a bunch of shows. You should check us out. We'd be happy to have you.
Thank you. And everyone, thank you for watching. You can catch Tango Shalom in theaters on Friday, September 3rd in LA and New York, and tickets are available now. And thanks for watching PGS Reviews on the Burnettwork. And remember, be kind.